guys, how you going? So today on BKRsport, we are here for a brand new video in regards to the NRL season. I'm so keen, coming up in a couple of days' time now, and gee whiz, I tell you what, it's taken a while, but we're finally here, and I'm damn well ready to go. But today, guys, I'm not here by myself. You know, we've been getting a heap of people on lately, and other fellow NRL content creators, and we've got someone from Tripod today. How you going, Jacob?
Yeah, well, thanks, mate. Happy to be here. Always excited to talk NRL. Can't wait for the season kickoff.
Yeah, exactly right, man. Yeah, buddy, 1 week, I tell you what. Like, I'm just pumping, especially as a Titans fan, man. You know, like, we've been, shit house for a long time now, and to put it lightly, and at least we're finally getting some positivity going, I guess.
Oh, absolutely, and you should be excited with good reason, especially the way they ended the season with the recruits. But I'm sure we'll get to all that as we look at all 16 teams.
Exactly right. So basically, the way this is going to go today, guys, is we're actually going to go through the big question. So there's one big question that pretty much every team has right now individually, and we're going to do it rapid fire, 3 minutes per one. It might even end up being 2 parts. If this is part 1, then obviously come back and we'll be obviously doing part 2 as well. But yeah, so we're going to be going through every single club, all 16, and smashing them out in rapid fire. So you ready, mate?
Let's do it.
Bingo. All right, so the first team we've got is the Broncos, and I think you're a Broncos fan, aren't you?
I'm Brisbane born and raised. As my podcast is a punting podcast, I try to be a bit agnostic to be unbiased. But yeah, suffering Broncos fan last season for sure.
Well, can they bounce back, man? I think you're probably one of the better to ask.
I would say somewhat. It's not hard to bounce back when you came, 16th, and they were absolutely dismal last year. And while they've lost a couple of key guys, losing for Feeder, losing Stags for at least half the year with the ACL, Haas for the first month, I really think that Kevy can bring such a big culture change. The attitude was so diabolical in games last year, watch them, especially after the COVID break. Yeah. That alone, I think, is worth a few ladder position improves. I still think the forward pack, look at a guy like Jordan Ricky coming through, but several others, is still very competitive. So I think they'll string a few wins. The crowd might get behind them again with Kevy. And I have them finishing more around the 12th, 13th position.
Yeah, look, I haven't done my specific previews yet, but I've probably got them around a similar-ish position. I do think you're right in regards to the fact they can bounce back and the fact they should bounce back considering they're such a big team and they've obviously got so many expectations. I'm not too worried necessarily about their team, though, in regards to, as an opposition. Their back line doesn't really scare me too much. Tony Staggs is great, but, there's more than just a centre you need for an attack and back line. The halves, I have no idea what's going on there. And the forwards are decent, but obviously they did lose David Fafita, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they do go. I do think they bounce back, but what do you think about Walters? Do you think that, look, he hasn't really got the specific NRL experience per se, or like the season long? What would you say to that?
Well, I'd say I don't know whether he would be the man that will lead him to a premiership, but I think he's exactly what the doctor ordered for just that culture change and instilling that pride back in the jersey that was lacking. If he could improve like the passion and the the pride in the jersey once again, that alone is going to see this club do a lot better. That's
the thing, man. Like with Brisbane, like I grew up in Brisbane, so I was born in Cogra, but I moved up to Brisbane, and my whole life, well, until I was 13, I was there, and that's just the place loves rugby league. It's just obsessed with rugby league, and I think it would have just been a bit of a sour mood for the entire year of last year because everyone's just so obsessed. So I think they deserve to be better, and I think that Walters could be the guy that, like you said, could bring that culture and return it back to the glory days per se. Alrighty, next up we do have the Bulldogs. Now, obviously, there's a lot of hype going around them this year. And the main question, I feel, is, are they ready yet? Are they actually here and are they ready to go?
So I'd say no, not this year. I love the pickup of Barrett as coach there. I think you look at what he did with the attack with Penrith last year, obviously had a big hand in that, but Penrith had quite different level class of playmakers there. It's not quite what the Bulldogs have. Everyone seems to think Flanagan's going to be the immediate answer. And while I think he's a good kid and a good player with a good future, I hope that the expectations aren't too high. For me, this year is where you build in the new systems. We want to see improvement because they were quite a limited side in attack and they definitely lost games just by not having kind of clinical halves play. And they've made some great additions. Like I think Nick Kotrick's a massive addition. I think Luke Thompson, we didn't see the best of him because he had to come over mid-year quarantine, things like that. But I do think they're still a year or two away. You look at 2022 when Addo Carr, when Matt Burton are going to enter the fray. So for me, I think maybe an improvement in style of play for Bulldogs, but still bottom 4.
I love that you've actually kind of referenced 2023 as well, because obviously, there's three different packs right now. There are unrealistic people who are thinking this year is their year. There is people who are a bit more realistic and saying next year when Carr's there, Burton's there, and obviously Barrett gets a full year with them. And then there is, people like myself and yourself who bring up 2023 and say, they still might need a couple of years here with this young team, and then they'll be quite good, or potentially quite good anyway. I think this Bulldogs team, obviously, they've been kind of average for quite some time now. 7 years. They were in a grand final, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. But in the same sense, they're not the same defensive team anymore. Yes, Barrett comes in, but he obviously is an attacking-minded coach. So with the emphasis of the Bulldogs as a club normally being on defense, I do struggle to see it working out as soon anyway. And I wasn't necessarily a fan of Barrett when he was an actual coach itself, not just the attacking coach of the Panthers. So, look, it's going to be interesting. But do you see what I'm saying in regards to that, in regards to the emphasis usually being the defense of the Dogs?
Yeah, it's like they've always been the dogs of war. They've always wanted to outgrind the opponent. So the ideal scenario for Bulldogs would be they can keep that resilience and defense. And it kept them in games last year, but they can add to the attack. But whether that's the case with a coach that comes in and puts a lot more of the preparation and emphasis on attack, then I think you're raising a good question. Then does the defense slip? But I guess we'll wait and see. And I suppose it's going to be a bit of pressure on the forwards as well to keep the middle tight, especially with the new rules.
They're one of the more exciting ones coming forward, I guess, alongside teams like the Titans and stuff. So I guess they're getting lumped in very similar-ish in regards to that. So, no, it will be very interesting to see how the Doggies will go into the future. My one, here we go. The Gold Coast Titans, man. The big question, I think everyone knows this, are they overhyped right now?
And that's a great question because everybody likes them this year. You look at the way they finished last year, winning the final 5 games, and then they've probably had arguably the best recruitment class of 2021 of anybody. Getting Tino Fa'asuamaleaui and signing him prior to last year before he exploded, so he's on quite a palatable contract. Dave Fafita, they've absolutely paid top dollar, but you bring in a caliber of guy like that, it can really change pack. And the pack was already very promising, like young guys like Fodawaker coming through as well. And then the back line's definitely like showing more promise and emerging Fogarty and Ash Taylor getting his mojo back somewhat. But I do question whether they are overhyped. Like I still look at their roster. We'll get to other teams. I don't necessarily think the Titans are any better than a Newcastle, a Parramatta. There's still quite a few teams that I put a bit ahead of them, which doesn't leave that many spots to make the 8, which I think they will. But I think they're going to just get into 8th place. I think it's a little bit of a different story when your opponent kind of knows how good you are now. You're not sneaking up on anybody and you're not padding your record by winning those late season games that aren't high stakes.
I think that's what actually, I was watching Kempy that day actually, and he was talking to Brett Finch, and I think that's exactly what Finch said too in regards to the fact that it's not a surprise anymore. Like teams are actually going to be knowing that the Titans are here now, and they do have the ability to win. I would disagree in regards to the Knights because they're such an, and we'll get against the Knights in a second, but they're such an inconsistent team. I do think the Titans have the stability there, even with this young forward pack, and with Holbrook under a whole year now. Holbrook obviously is a good up-and-coming coach. I think that, look, overhyped is probably yes. I have seen people saying top 4 potentially. And as a Titans fan myself, I don't think we're making top 4. If we do, that's fantastic. I'm looking forward to it, but I don't think so. But in regard, I just think this team, maybe not this year, but I just think the way they finished off last year when AJ Brimson came back too, if he's there for the full year, I definitely see him making the 8. But overhyped, yes and no. I can't disagree with it, but I can also agree with some parts of it. Alrighty, next up we do have the Melbourne Storm, and this is one of my favourite questions here. Will Cameron Smith have the Tom Brady effect?
So by asking that, you're saying then if Cam Smith leaves the Storm, are they going to suffer in the same way that the New England Patriots suffered without Tom Brady this year, essentially?
Basically, what I'm saying is obviously everyone believed in Belichick being the guy at New England, but it really obviously ended up being, I guess, Tom Brady.
Yeah, right. And I don't think the Storm will struggle in the same way that we saw the Patriots struggle this year, because I think they can cover him by committee. I think how lucky are they? Although Harry Grant has this knee injury and won't play the first month, but you got Brandon Smith there as well. and for the majority of the season, you're going to have Harry Grant, who was just so classy last year for the Tigers, obviously in the Dally M mix, and we saw what he did in that Origin decider as well. So what an embarrassment of riches they have to cover him. No doubt, you lose a lot more than just dummy half play. You lose goal kicking, you lose captaincy, but there's a lot of leadership in that team, and there's still so much talent. And I look at that young, that spine. Pappenhausen could be even better this year. Munster Munster's on top of his game. Jerome Hughes, who's just re-signed long-term, and the forward pack's still formidable. So to me, it's not going to be the Tom Brady effect. I think it can be more of the same from the Storm, which is crazy that they could lose the GOAT and they may still find themselves back in the grand final in 2021.
Yeah, look, I would disagree. I think they could obviously make the grand final. I'm sick of, underhyping them and then they obviously go and win the grand final. You know what I mean? Everyone's been doing that forever. Look, I think that Craig Bellamy, I've always said this, Craig Bellamy is the guy there. Yes, losing that direction through the hooker role could obviously bring up questions like this, but I do think obviously, with Harry Grant there and Brandon Smith, I don't obviously think that they are Cameron Smith yet, obviously, so that we could obviously see a little bit of a detraction or, removal from how quality they were. But in the same sense, this team, like we just said, has so many outlets to improve regardless. Ryan Papenhuyzen is my favourite player right now as a fullback. I thought he was my favourite player to watch last year anyway. And I just think, this Storm team is just, you just can't stop him until Craig Bellamy goes. I just think it's until Craig Bellamy goes that this team's not done. Everyone said after Billy Slater went, Cooper Cronk left. Now Cameron Smith. Now we're going to see again probably that Craig Bellamy is that guy there. So I guess that's the biggest question there. But in the same sense, I still see them at least pushing for preliminary final.
And actually, you look at what happened to the Raiders last year. They lost Josh Hodgson. People thought that was their season shot. All it did was meant more opportunities and more responsibility on the halves who dominated more. Imagine if Jerome Hughes and Munster take more of the gameplay and playmaking on themselves. That could be just as scary for opponent defenses.
Okay, we've got the Newcastle Knights. Knights fans, inconsistent. And the question is the inconsistency making this, up-and-coming Knights team a bust?
I am a little bit higher on the Knights, and I think the biggest question for me, which would lead to inconsistency, is there a fracture in the playing group? Because of any top side probably got some of the worst off-season, turmoil and stories coming out. We know the Mitchell Pearce saga. There's a little bit about Adam O'Brien. But I tend to think that those stories can get a little bit overhyped, a little bit exaggerated. There's word within the camp. It's still a tight group, and it's a promising group. And I look at the fact that they came 7th last year, and they've added Tyson Frizzell. And you've got a guy like Kalen Ponga, who I think keeps getting better. And, you're going to get back Jaden Brayley. You're going to get back Connor Watson. I still think Mitchell Pearce has something to offer, where some people, I think, don't maybe realise how quality of a halfback he is. And the forward pack, I think, is very unheralded, because I think the Saifidi brothers are fantastic. Mitch Barnett, Fitzgibbon in there. And you've still got a guy like Clem as well. So I think this team, it's going to be really hard to beat. Always good at home. And I think they're a top 8 side. I don't think they'll be very inconsistent. Yeah,
look, it's just been for so many years that I guess that fit. Like, obviously, everyone's been building this team up for so long now. Everyone's been saying that this is, right about now is when they should be really peaking. So I guess this is the year that I guess we see them peak, because outside of this, I can't necessarily see a long term right now. I can see a short term and the potential to, make a top 6, I guess. But I see them finishing in a similar spot. I think that the top 8 this year is such a, or not the top 6. I think 7 through probably about 13 probably is anyone's real game, to be completely honest with you. I do have my picks, but the Knights, I feel like they're better than a lot of the other teams, and they've got a lot more of the players than the other teams in regards to names, but names don't necessarily do it. They have to work as a team. When we saw how they finished off the season, they lost 36-0 to the Titans, and then, they went and they were up by, 20 against the Rabbitohs and then got flogged by 20 or something like that. So it's so difficult for me to see. I do think that obviously Frizzell is such a huge signing for them. I think that the Knights can get it rolling, but it's just such a, the playing factor with the teammates. And look, I don't know. I think they do probably make the 8 this year, but I'm not as high on them as some other people because of my lack of trust over the years, basically. The Parramatta Eels, they're a bit of a nifty bunch. We never know what to take of them, but can they actually win the premiership with this playing group?
I reckon out of a lot of your questions, a lot of them would be 50-50 and be quite polarising. I reckon most people would say, what kind of question is that? No, the Parramatta can't win the premiership. I'll buck that and actually say I'm really high on Parramatta. And I think they are on the same level as a lot of the other teams that everyone's probably going to put in the 4 this year. And I personally have come out and said, I think the Parramatta is going to come second on the ladder. They're going to be top 4. And they're my smoky this year. The reason is, a few things went wrong from last year, and it's left a bitter taste in everyone's mouth because they fell away at the end of last year. They lost a couple of the final games, and then got bounced out in the finals. But they did suffer a few bits of poor fortune and key positional injuries. When you look at Mitchell Moses, Reid Marnie, Dylan Brown, all suffered like month-long injuries through the season. And speaking of those guys, that's a young core spine that's now got a lot of first-grade games together as a unit. And I think that continuity really matters, as does this forward pack that I reckon can stand up against anybody. I think kind of like the Knights, and I'd say even better, is really underrated forward pack. And I think there's rep players there that need to step up as well. If there's a question mark, I suppose it's the outside backs. They're going to have to deal without Jennings, his leadership, his attack and his defense as well. Whether they can patch that up, maybe need big years out of Sivo, Wonga Blake, Ferguson. But if you get that, I don't think it's crazy. I know the man that's going to probably decide it is Mitch Moses, and the rap on him is he doesn't win big games. But I still am a believer, and I think the potential is there. Stuff will have to go right. It could be Brad Arthur's last year. But if it does, I think they're going to be in the mix.
Yeah, look, I don't think I could wipe them out, put it that way. I don't think that they're second on the ladder, but I do think that they are a good team. I think they've got a good playing group. I think that I'm not obviously speaking necessarily about this year when I say win the premiership. I just think in general, I don't necessarily believe that Mitch Moses is that guy for them, to be honest with you. I just don't necessarily believe that that Eels team is going to be able to beat the Storm this year. I think that the Storm, the Storm are going to be one of the favourites. The Rabbitohs are going to be there too. I'm actually higher on the Panthers than a lot of other people are. People are falling off the Panthers. I'm a lot higher on the Panthers than most people. I don't know if I can see them being able to out-attack these kind of teams. Their defence is fine. It's okay. Well, it was good, and then it fell back, like you said. Look, very polarising team, I guess. You're really on them or you're really off them. But I think that, they're a quality team, but I just don't know if they can actually win the premiership against some of these more prolific attacking teams. The Rabbitohs, some people are very high on them. Some people are also just normally high on them, but are they genuine favourites? Like, do you think this team will or can win it this year?
Like, they're not my favourites, but I understand why they're just about everybody else's favourites. In our group, we put up a poll. Overwhelmingly, they were chosen as people's pick to win the premiership this year. There's no reason why they certainly can't. You look at how they finished last year again, another side that came home, with a wet sail, and that was without a couple of key guys like Latrell Mitchell had the hamstring test. Still, the team still barely missed a beat with Corey Allen slotting in there. And the recruitment on top of that as well, bringing in Josh Mansour on the back line, Jai Arrow in the back row. The team looks complete. I don't really see many holes there. I see a super coach in Bennett. We know what he did with the team last year when there wasn't a great deal of expectation, what he did with Queensland. And again, what wins you games is a spine, and you could argue they've got as good a spine as any in the comp.
It's a great spine,
and those halves and Damien Cook with the new rules. So I do have them in the top four. I absolutely think that they're premiership contenders.
I think I would give them favouritism. Whether that's my favourite or not, it's another question. But they definitely should be favourites based on how they finished off last year, considering that no one really backed him in through halfway or even three quarters. No one backed him in. They've got such an attacking team. I do worry about the defensive end because they do obviously like to give up some points as well, despite the fact they can score. But they can still outscore you. Look at that Knights game, for example. They gave up the first 20 or whatever, and they came up and scored 40 or 50 in the end to knock them out. So I think that, overall, this Rabbitohs team deserves to be favourites. I think that, their spine is absolutely fantastic. And the way the game is obviously becoming is very fast. And Damien Cook is that guy. He's a guy that comes out of that dummy half role and just goes bang. You know what I'm saying? So, look, I think overall the Rabbitohs definitely deserve it to be the favourites. But I think sometimes a lot of the time with other sports as well is that you can be a fantastic attacking team, but if you are a fantastic attacking team and a relatively weaker defensive team, you need to make sure your attack is on every single game because otherwise your defense will give it up regardless and you didn't score as many as you need to. So that's my only question, but I definitely think they're favourites,
I think you make a really good point about that because it used to always be defense wins championships, but with the new style of playing the new rules, I think maybe you can run and gun and outscore opponents, and South Sydney's built to do that, which is also going to make their game so exciting, including the season opener down in Melbourne.
Next up, we've got the Sydney Roosters. This is interesting because have they fallen off? They've been bloody good through the last couple decades, but people are, underrating them a bit now.
Well, I have them slightly. Yeah, no, there's question marks for sure. You look, the captain, Boyd Cordner, it will be out at least half the year. We don't know for sure. Is he going to come back? Some of the key players are aging. The Morris brothers, Warrior Hargraves, and even other key players. I think Tedesco copped knocks last year. Kiri has had his share of concussions as well. They're changing their halfback, of course. I have them finishing fifth because I know the style to Trent Robinson coaches a team and also prepares a team that he doesn't try to win the competition in the first 2 months. He'll pace the team, and especially he always knows he has rep players. And that does mean sometimes they don't win as many regular season games, but they're going to be raring to go towards the back end of the year. And they'll still be pushed in the top 4, I believe. But there are more question marks this year than others, I guess, with some players that you would argue are past their prime, but it doesn't mean they can't give it one last red hot shake. So I wouldn't be shocked, if they got back to the grand final this year, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they were more around 5th or 6th.
Please, no, not again. If we see a Storm, buddy, Roosters grand final again, buddy, I'll throw up. It's just they're just too good, man. You know what I mean? Like, they're just too good. But I do think that Boyd Cordner is the biggest loss there. I think that when he's in the team compared to when he's not in the team, I think their win-loss ratio is just ridiculous. I think that his leadership is just incredible. And obviously, like you said, he's out for quite some time. And also, even when he comes back, there's also the issue of, concussion or just going off again, to be honest with you, which isn't his fault. To everyone out there who thinks that when you're talking about injuries, that it's not their fault. But the same thing is that it's an actual fact still. It happens quite a lot. So that's the thing I worry about with the Roosters. I think that I don't really care how old Morris brothers are. I think they're going to have a fantastic year regardless. But I think that, there's a lot more question marks around this team now with, look, Jake Friend's great, but he's not the most dynamic hooker for this specific game nowadays. Maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, he was one of the better hookers because of his grindy style. But now with the fast pace, you're looking at your Damien Cooks, you're looking at your Apiso Kotosal, you're looking at these real fast, nifty players out of the, out from behind. So, look, I think the Roosters will still compete. I actually probably will have them around 5th as well. Like I said, that top 6 for me is pretty much locked up and they're in there. But yeah, look, it's a lot more difficult to read them this year than I guess any other year.
And when you mention dynamic, let's remember that Victor Radley returns to this team. Satili Tupanua is coming through. Crichton really stepped up when Cordner was absent. And a guy like Joey Manu. So they still have stars in this team. And on their best day, can still compete with the best in the competition for sure.
You just can't get them out. You can't wipe them out. You can't wipe them out, but you can have questions, but you can't wipe them out because of their quality. Well, there you go. Well, we bloody smashed that, mate. We absolutely, we piled through those. So, no, I think we did a pretty good job. I think we answered those pretty well. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so, mate. I thought they were really good, poignant questions that sets the table beautifully as we turn our attention fully to the actual footy season kicking off.
Exactly right. Well, I'm definitely keen for it. But where can everyone find you, man?
So just search Tripod with a Y. We've got a Facebook group, and we're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube as well, and previewing the games with a different perspective, more a punting perspective if people are interested in that.
Appreciate you coming on, man. Obviously, everyone, go and subscribe to that YouTube channel and obviously check them out because they do some really good stuff there. And, obviously I can't do anybody previews really because I'm always vlogging. So obviously jump over there and they'll help you out with that one. But obviously, guys, like I said, the season's coming very soon and I will be getting down to the game day experience vlogs. I'll be going to as many as I possibly can in the weekends. So go and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit a little ding-a-ling-a-ling notification bell so you get a notification every time we upload. If I'm not at the game, obviously I will be streaming as well. So, we can sit back and have a bit of a chat and have a bit of a laugh at probably, the Broncos. No, they'll be all right this year. But look, it'll be very interesting. But we appreciate you guys as always. Smack that thumbs up button and I'll see you guys next time. Alrighty, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. See ya.